What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inspired Forward. I'm Dan Trinidad, and I have got a fantastic guest for us today, Todd Bookspan. Todd's been an entrepreneur for 25 years. He's the founder of Win by Noon. He's a sought-after business coach with Building Champions. He's been a top-producing mortgage planner for over 16 years. He co-hosts Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind Group with Dave Savage. He was actually in the cycling business. In fact, owned a couple bike shops. He's a husband and a father of 3 beautiful daughters. Welcome, Todd.
I'm so excited to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. You bet, man. I've been really enjoyed getting to know you. You run in the right crowds, and you've got a tremendous reputation, and I know you could add lots of value to the people on this podcast. I love your journey. I really do. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let's start this conversation out by maybe telling us a little bit about how you got into the cycling business and how you ended up getting out of the cycling business, because I think that's where you started really your career.
It's funny. That's such a great question. And it's been a long time since anybody's asked me. I grew up racing bicycles. It was a family hobby. My dad dragged us out on a Sunday to go on what was called a breakfast ride in Phoenix. And we rode along with a bunch of other people, and everyone split into groups and went different speeds and all ended up at the same restaurant at the same time. And just led to this passion to ride bikes. And as I got rolling as a kid, I said, I'm going to work in a bike shop. And I got a job in a bike shop. And then I went to college, and none of the local bike shops wanted to sponsor a collegiate cycling team. It was a new thing. And I got a business license and started selling bike parts out of my house, and kind of said, I can keep doing this. I was already selling products. So straight out of college, I went through the entrepreneurship program at U of A, University of Arizona, at U of A. And straight out of school, I decided to open up a high-end pro shop. And I also bid against all the other stores in town and a couple national people for the first privately held business on the U of A campus.
Wow.
So never really having a business of my own to having 2 at the same time back in 1990. And it was a blast for about 8 years, and I stayed in it for 10 years. And so like a lot of things, you get into it and you just lose your passion if you can't keep re-sparking things. So I kept trying to open up different stores or do different things, and really hit a point where I decided I just wasn't as passionate about it as I was, and didn't know what I wanted to do. So I actually went back to school again, where I got my MBA at night in the executive program at Arizona State University. So I switched sides. It was really hard for my family because they're all a bunch of wildcats. And while I was doing that, I was a stay-at-home dad. And while I was a stay-at-home dad, my buddy, who I actually worked with in the bike business, said, gosh, you should really get in the mortgage business. You understand numbers and you actually like people. And most people are either good with people but can't get numbers, or vice versa. And after a little bit of wrangling up, he convinced me to jump in. I had to go out and buy some long pants because I didn't own any at the time. I only owned shorts. And I went to work as his assistant, and off to the races I was part-time, and the rest is history.
Wow. And so then you're in the mortgage business, and so how long was it before you started seeing, obviously, the opportunity, the possibility, more importantly, waking up with that passion, because you became an awfully successful mortgage planner? So, when people get in the business, I think you jump in being somewhat excited about the opportunity. You see how much money you could make. You could see that you could build your own business. But at some point in time, I think it really connects with the stars and really what they're providing people. And that's when they really start to excel, is when that passion starts fueling them.
It's funny you say that, because, here I was getting my MBA, and it was right when the financial crisis was, we're on the front end of it. We didn't know, that it was really coming. And really what I saw was I had a handful of years where we were kind of in the go refi years, right? Rates were 7, then they were 6, and they were 5. And I got in and I worked my sphere, right? I worked my sphere of my stay-at-home mom friends. I refinanced half of my classmates in the MBA program, a quarter of my professors. So I worked my sphere, and then I put my numbers to good use. I'd been an investor. So my bicycle stores were in Tucson, Arizona, and I still owned a rental property there. And I 1031 exchanged into a fourplex up here. And so I understood that market as well. And I really dug in on that as my niche. And my wife, who was practicing law at the time, said, there's no way you can have a commission job. Like, you're going to graduate with that MBA and you're going to go get a real job. And then really she saw the passion in me. She saw how much I loved it, how I was learning and really dug in to try to figure out how to be the best I could be. And then finally she relented when I graduated, and I finally had to kind of break it to her that here I was working part-time as a mortgage loan originator, and I was out earning my MBA classmates, and I loved what I did. And there was nothing else I could find that was of interest. I thought I might be a business consultant or something like that. But I feel like if you're a great mortgage loan officer or mortgage consultant, you're going to consult with your clients, your realtor partners, whoever else your partners look like. And that was really the passion that lit up in me, and I still have today for the business.
I get it. So do you think it's still a viable career for young people to jump into?
Gosh, I certainly hope so. My real passion lately has been for where my heart is for the person who's the lower producer, the person who's struggling. And I did a survey, about 3 months ago, and I had about 200 loan officers who were nice enough to fill it out. About 50 of them, the first 50 were just LOs who were struggling to do 4 loans a month consistently. And I got great data. And I was talking to Dave Savage from Mortgage Coach about it because Dave's a really good friend. And Dave said, gosh, let's get this on everybody else. So I was really fortunate to have another 150 originators come in and give data. And I've been hanging out with a lot of entrepreneurs. So I've been spending a lot of time this past year since I launched Win by Noon, trying to figure out what the heck is Win by Noon? What am I going to try to do with it in the long term? And, brought back that entrepreneurial fire I had when I opened the bicycle stores, really the same passion I brought to the mortgage business. And I really found that there's not a lot out there. There's great one-on-one coaching programs, but there's not a lot out there to help that young, new originator get in the business unless they stumble into a branch where the mortgage originator is building a team and has the time to mentor them, or they stumble into a branch where the branch manager has time to help mentor them. But, I don't know. I always kind of say that a branch manager is sort of an oxymoron. It's really hard in this industry with the way that compensation works for someone to pour into you full time and help you get going and make a living as an originator as well. And all my entrepreneur friends said, gosh, don't worry about those people who can't afford what it is you're trying to sell, and don't go after that low end. And I thought, I think they're wrong. I really want to do that. I've coached at the highest level with Masters Coach at Building Champions. And, there's got to be a way to help those other people. So that's my mission right now. That's what I'm really trying to figure out. Very cool.
So of those 200 people that responded to your question, what would you say the average age group of the lower producers were?
It's funny because I didn't ask their age, but I spoke to almost 50 of them on the phone. And I said, hey, as a thank you, I'll just schedule time and we can talk. And so anyone who reached out, I gave them a link. They could schedule time with me. It was a lot of fun, and it was interesting. I talked to some people who literally were in the business for 3 months, 6 months, but that was a small percentage. I was shocked at the number of people who have been in the business. First I talked to people 5 to 10 years in the business, but I talked to a ton of people who were 20, 30 years in the business who, had a little more gray on top like you and I do. And we're also still struggling. And a lot of them said, gosh, I don't really think I know what an operating system looks like today. And so it was kind of interesting because those conversations inspired me to do a group coaching program, which actually I did 2 of them that I'm in the middle of now, that I'm going to turn into a digital product for a January launch. So that'll be kind of fun. But the interesting part is I think the statistic. It's an older crowd, right? At the average LO, depending on who you listen to, is 52 to 54 years old. And so I've really poured into the younger folks in our group. I've really, the ones who are on the fence are the ones that I really kind of twisted their arm to jump in because I feel like that's the future. And then I'm trying to encourage the other people who are in the group to consider mentoring somebody else. And so that'll be part of the hopeful Pay It Forward program. Then we get this done at the end. I'm going to teach these guys and encourage them all to do that. So most of them are aware of it. Some of them are probably hearing about it for the first time right here. So be ready for it.
You and I are inspired by the same thing. I love working with the underdog, and I really, every day hope to inspire people to do what they love and not settle for average, and to really look at what they're doing. And if they're not excelling in this business, it's either a lack of passion, or they're not really connected to the why, or they don't have a clear vision. But the opportunity is still so big, and I love working with the underdog. So you mentioned Win by Noon, and I'd like to hear how you win by noon.
That's a fun question, and it's a obviously I'm a walking commercial for Win by Noon, and it's I don't know. I'm almost embarrassed by it, but that's okay. I'm just so excited about it because of the results that I'm seeing people get. And for me, really what it looked like was, after spending almost 5 years as a producing regional recruiting manager. So I was running my team, and then I was also working with my wife, who then had transitioned into the mortgage business because people didn't want to hire me to run anything. They saw that she was a lot smarter than me, and so they hired her to do it, and then I went to work for her. But I did all the recruiting and the coaching of loan officers as we brought people into our branch. That was our unique value proposition that we had put out there. And so when they sold that company, I decided to get back into production because my team had gotten stuck at $80 million of production, about 400 units a year. And although I was doing business development, I was just out of the day-to-day talking to clients. I might answer our hotline on the weekend, and that might be when I talk to clients. And so I ended up jumping back in full on into mortgages with a goal to really live out my vision, right? You had Bill Hart on an earlier call, and Bill is a friend and mentor. Bill was my first coach for 4 years, and I'd written a vision with him back in 2000, end of 2003 or early 2004 that said I was going to be a $100 million producer. And here I was a little more than a decade later, and I hadn't reached it yet. I got stuck. And so I said, I got to do something different. And what I realized is that I had all these other people that were setting my schedule around what was around their time versus the opposite way around. And so what I did was I literally took out my notebook and I got on my calendar. I literally blocked off my day from 8:30 to 11:30 every day. And so I wasn't winning by noon. I was winning by 11:30, but win by noon sounded much catchier for a company name. But what I did was I dropped my youngest daughter off at school at 8:30, and then I really got busy with what were my most important priorities. And then no one else was allowed to schedule anything for me until after 11:30. And what I found was, as a loan officer who at that point, literally I was taking, I look back at my numbers from that year. I was taking anywhere from 25 to 60 loan applications in a month. I was really hustling around and doing business, but I made the calls and I did the activities that the best of the best do every day. And I just forced myself to do them in the morning before I started running around and doing meetings and all the other things that really everybody else, we all have to do, but we all take something that's important and we treat it like it's urgent. And really what's urgent, really always, and really more importantly today, as we're really potentially heading into a changing market in 2019, is to do those key activities that they're not sexy, they're not fun, right? Pick up the phone and call people, right? That's really it. But know who to call, know when to call them, and be really strategic about what a plan looks like. And so when I started doing that, all of a sudden, it was amazing, right? More realtors wanted to work with me. Surprise, surprise, because I had better communication, I had better follow-up. I said, I'll call you on Tuesdays, and I called them on Tuesdays. I was able to have better client referrals because I said, hey, I'm going to update you every week. And lo and behold, I update them every week because I forced myself to do it, where what I find is every loan officer tells me, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Every loan officer tells me, oh yeah, I do it. And then when I say, well, do you do it consistently? They all kind of hesitate. Well, right. And it's we all have those fires that come up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I connect with what you're saying because it's a challenge for me ongoingly in that when I'm having a lot of success is when I'm getting stuff done right away, because I tend to come in the office and the phone starts ringing and people start coming in and I start getting distracted on other projects I could be passionate about, but not getting the things done that I need to. But when I do, when they're non-negotiable and when I'm committed and when they're actually scheduled on my calendar and I get those things done, it's crazy amazing how the day turns, because from noon to 5, I tend to actually just blow away what I intended to do because mentally I've already accomplished some things that I would tend to put off and maybe reschedule till tomorrow. My day starts at 5 a.m. and I get the stuff done that I know fuel me before 8 a.m. But when I get to the office, it's time to pour into Partners Mortgage. What time does your day start?
Oh, I was up at 4 o'clock this morning and I become really hyper-focused on my health. And so 7.5 hours is really my goal. And I'm going to normally set an alarm for 7 hours and 45 minutes after I went to bed. The flip side is 6 hours. So I will do like the sleep cycles. I'm super nerdy about nutrition. I've got a little nutrition section up here on my bookshelf behind me. And so I could talk about that all day too, but that's not why people are here. So I'm up between 4 and 4:30 almost every day, typically 6 days a week. And then if I need to catch up on any sleep, I'll always have one day where I'll do that. And, my morning routine is meditation has really been, it's hard for me because my mind is always moving a million miles an hour. But, I make sure that this thing stays out of my zone, right? I'm not jumping on Facebook and Instagram and checking my email first thing. I'm up doing my meditation, and then I'm stretching, push-ups, sit-ups, and then some type of reading, normally spiritual reading first, and then I'll do some type of learning. Or there's just times right now I'm actually creating content. And so I've skipped a lot of the personal reading, the personal development reading, to really just jump right into content in the morning. So, but I think morning's the key, right? However you start your morning is how you finish your day. And then I would tell you that I learned from Daniel Harkavy that the best morning routine starts the night before. I'd heard so many people talk about their morning routine, but in the end, it's how I went to bed. So if I can wind down better, that's been, another area where I've been really focused.
Yeah, I've realized, turning off the gadgets at a fairly early hour. I tend to go to my iPad for everything, even my notes and the weather and, all that. So I've put that away significantly earlier, and I'm having much better sleep. And I'm in bed by 9 o'clock. It's kind of funny around our house. You start winding down at 8:30 and go in and prepare, and then you're in bed. But that's my wife, Katie. She wakes up at 4:30 every morning and heads straight to the gym, and that causes me to get up a little earlier than I want. I like getting up at 5, but I start the same way as you. I start out with some meditation, and then I do a journal, and then make some tea and do some exercise, do a little bit of reading or listen to some podcasts, have a good breakfast shake, and head into the office. And I can usually get all that stuff done that I just mentioned in 2.5, 3 hours. So I'm in work by 8 o'clock and, really ready for my day, knowing I got the most important stuff done. So, what's so cool in talking with you, and what I observe is most people don't really recognize when the passion isn't strong anymore. A lot of people stick in their jobs for a long time or do something that they're really not even passionate about to begin with, just for a paycheck. And I understand that some people have to. What's so cool is that you seem to have recognized at certain parts of your business life that, selling bikes, repairing bikes aren't doing it for me anymore. I'm going to do loans. And then at some point, I want to lead and help people to do loans, and you end up a great coach. And now you've created this product in an effort to help people. And I know you've started a coaching group too. I don't know a lot about that. I'd love to hear about it. But how do you know? I mean, it's very cool to me because I've got all these ideas of what I want to do. I think I'm still passionate about what I do. I wake up, jump out of bed every morning, but I don't, how do you flow into something else?
It's really hard, right? Especially when you think about the economics of, running $100 million team. And, I was lucky, right? I'm lucky because I worked with my wife. And so my wife could take the reins and continue on that path and that journey. And it also keeps me connected to the business and, makes me, really, really relevant at what's going on day to day. So, I'm a little bit unique because I have that view into the business day to day, but I get more excitement. When I realized the change happened when I went from helping loan officers grow their business within our branch, and then I was just focused on me and my team and growing that. It just didn't give me the same excitement. I love talking to borrowers, right? I really enjoyed the whole idea of sitting down with a realtor and helping him or her plan out their business. That was a lot of fun to me. But I realized real quick that taking a 1003 from a first-time home buyer, as much as that was a fun thing for me to do, wasn't my highest calling, right? And I think you have to get really clear on your why, right? So, one of the things that I did was I wrote a life plan with Bill Hart back in 2003, got really clear on what was important to me. And as soon as that shifted over the years from, building a great business, raising a great family, right? I've been really fortunate. I've got 3 daughters, as you mentioned. And then all of a sudden, my real personal why was to help other people reach their potential. Then I thought, okay, well, what's the way to do it? And at some point, that became getting out and getting into coaching. And Win by Noon wasn't anything I thought of. It was just how I lived my life. And then my loan officers on the team wanted to use that. I was helping other friends who were in Master's Coach with me, and they said, hey, let me check that out for me and my team. And then I printed 100 copies of it. Dave Savage on our mortgage coach productivity call said, hey, bring that thing out. And then all of a sudden I sold 300 of them. And so, I was off to the races with something that was an idea had become a real business. And then now, as I continue to hear from people who continue to struggle, like I just got hired by a mortgage company to help them implement it with their 30 loan officers next year, because someone who was in the middle of the pack in 2017, her business is up 26% this year. And she's the number one LO in their branch. Everyone else is down and she's up, and she credits to Win by Noon. And, I've never even met her. I can't wait to, because she's the kind of success story that drives me to want to continue to develop others, want to continue to develop myself to be better, and more products and more offerings to help people reach that.
You're helping a lot of people. So when you make those transitions into a new business, has it ever been the case where you've had to take a cut in income?
Well, I would tell you this. You can ask any coach. There's definitely not, there's not a lot of coaches out there that are, driving the cars that the loan officers they coach drive in the mortgage industry. And so, there's no doubt that there's that change. And so, again, full disclosure, with my wife still, running along with the team, that, that helped, right? But, again, it did dent the income, right? I got two kids at Ivy League college. So, it wasn't a decision that you could take lightly, but at the same time, I don't live my life, around the money part of it. You really have to be passionate about it. And so, I talk to some loan officers who are concerned about their passion. I mean, that's really it. If you're not clear on your why, I mean, there's some great tools out there. Simon Sinek wrote the book, did the TED Talk.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. I mean, that was one of my other ahas of our group coaching program. So you asked about it, and it's not currently available to anyone. So it's not like I'm trying to pitch it, but it will be a digital product next year. So I guess it's a future pitch. But we just did one that was called Operating System 2.0, which is installing your operating system. Really, like, how do you day in and day out build the basics to be a great loan officer? Because some people just jump in, hit 100 miles an hour really quick, and never really learn the basics of productivity, the basics of, how to actually sell something, really know what their why is. And so we did an exercise a couple weeks in on what's your why, what's your unique value proposition. And again, I don't believe in unique selling proposition. We're not a selling world. We have to provide value, and then turn that into your elevator pitch. And one of the people we were in Zoom like we are now, was in chat, was like, hey, Todd, I want to talk. Hey, Todd, I want to talk. I know there's no one-on-one, but I want to talk. And I was on vacation. So I said, hey, next week when I'm in town, we can connect. And long story short, we did. And he said, hey, I was originally trying to get you on the phone because I was quitting the program. So I was going to quit the mortgage business. But when you pushed me through that exercise on my personal why, I remembered why I'm in the business, and now I'm all in. I'm super excited to be in it. So those are the kind of stories that drive me. But I bring it up as an example to you. If you're listening to this and you're just not quite sure why you're all in it, then I would say you're probably not clear on what your why is. And there's just lots of great opportunities. Book Living Forward by Daniel Harkavy and Michael Hyatt's a great book on your personal why. I mentioned Simon Sinek. There's just great tools out there.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of loan officers, a lot of realtors, doing a lot of interviews. And what I'm finding from a lot of them is that they're considering getting out, that they don't really like what they're doing, but they're making enough money. They're making more money than they can go out and make somewhere else. And they're not sure what they want to do. And I'm struggling with, logically, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, life goes by quickly, and to do something that you're not enjoying for the sake of money is really sad to me. But I'm struggling with, I could quickly say, well, then get out. But because that seems to me like what one should do, but it's obviously easier said than done. What do you say when, one of your, and you're probably coaching, highly driven people. So maybe this isn't an appropriate question for you, but what would you say to somebody that just says, man, I've been doing loans for 17 years. I hate the grind.
It's First, I have sympathy, right? I mean, I understand that. And I've talked to so many people who are in that position. It's really, my heart always goes out to somebody who's in there. And then I think you always have to bring it back to, why they got into business in the first place. What were the things they enjoyed about it? What are those things? I recently taught Win by Noon to a group of about 50 realtors, and I came up after their productivity coach, and he said, well, we all got into real estate so we could set our own schedules. And that's the exact reason why we're not successful in real estate. And so it came to this idea of, they really push in their organization 2 hours of calling. They've got metrics that they have to follow every day, ironically in the morning. So theirs isn't by noon, it's by 11 o'clock. And so he just encouraged them to create a schedule and then find your passion around that schedule. And so I kind of piggyback on that, where if you're struggling with it, I think you do have to dig back into why you got into it. And then you hit the nail on the head. I mean, both of those industries, the paycheck is pretty good. One of the other things I did was I surveyed via Facebook Messenger, but I sent out I got probably 25 responses. I created a spreadsheet, which was what was the average commission on a loan. And, I looked at it and, again, these folks are all making a pretty good living doing their 1 or 2 or 3 loans a month. And it's hard, but they're super frustrated by it. And really, when I dug down to it, they just didn't treat it like a job today, right? You kind of have to reinvent yourself today to do it. And I think that's the thing I would encourage anyone to do. If you're kind of stuck and you haven't looked at your why, look at it. And then if you do know what your why is, figure out, well, how can I approach tomorrow differently, right? How can I finish out today differently? How can I start my day, like we talked about with the morning routines, differently, so that when I get into work, I'm energized to help, and then find the right people. I think that's the other part, Dan. I don't know if you see it, but I find a lot of people right now who are forced to work with people they don't like because they need the referral. And I think you've got to come up with who your avatar is. Who is it that you really want to go after, so that you can target the right people that you really want to do business with, versus doing business with just anyone who will come your way.
Yeah. I think a lot of time is wasted too. I mean, my advice generally, when people are doing 1, 2, 3 loans a month, they really do have a lot more time on their hands. And if they don't really have the drive to do more and they're not enjoying themselves, I mean, you've got 24 hours in a day, you subtract 8 to sleep, and the remaining time you carve out between your loved ones, getting a workout in, and the rest, you can start another business. You can study another business. You can moonlight at another business, and find and it's important to find your why. So, yeah, it's interesting because I'm hearing it a little bit more lately, and it's from a lot of people that have been in the business a lot of years. Loans used to just drop on their laps. Now they got to do stuff that they should have been doing for the last 20 years. And they just don't want to do it anymore. And it's a bummer. But changing gears a little bit. So life is long, but it goes by fast. And, I'm just a huge believer in we've got a choice to be happy or not. And you have obviously so much on your plate. You've got a ton of ambition. You've got a great marriage and daughters and businesses, and how do you balance it all?
It's fun hearing you say that, because I am blessed beyond belief. Get way more than I deserve. And the real thing for me is the whole idea of filtering it out. We've all heard the big rock principle, like making sure that I really focus on those big rocks, because I'm not perfect at it, right? I mean, I make mistakes. Dan's not telling you this, but we were supposed to actually record this a few days ago, and then I actually missed it. It was like on my calendar. I ended up on the phone with someone longer than I thought. That was an unexpected call, a friend and a past client. And so he's been really nice not to say that, but I say that in full transparency, is that, really I have to prioritize. But if I pulled out of my planner, in the back of my planner, I've got my calendar for this year. I've got my calendar for next year. I've got already the big rocks planted in there. And then, we've got a family shared calendar with my wife, and I make sure that whatever's important to her is on there. So all that's on this calendar to start with, it always starts around my kids' school schedules and what they have going on and their vacations. And then I fill in around those. Those are blocked off. And then the next thing that it goes to is my coaching and speaking commitments, because that's something I'm really passionate about. How can I get my message out there and hopefully impact more people in a positive way? And then I start filtering it down to hey, what am I going to do today? And I get distracted like everybody else. I laugh because, again, this morning, I was dialing and I, had some great conversations, talked to a top loan originator who I'd never talked to before, but we're friends on Facebook and felt like we knew each other. I talked to a top insurance agent who is really an influencer in the property and casualty space, who I met at Gary Vaynerchuk's Agent 2021 event. So I've had some great conversations, and along the way I was wandering to grab something from my office and wandering back, and I hopped on, I saw something on Facebook while I'm walking, right? So I'm thinking I'm multitasking, and then all of a sudden I'm posting on Facebook. I'm like, ooh, all right, get back to what I'm supposed to be doing. And so for me, really, balance means something different to everybody else. And I think you're always in some level of it. Like right now, I'm probably more out of balance than I normally would be, because normally my morning routine would be 30 minutes longer. I'd be pouring more into me, but you have to sometimes get slightly out of balance when you're in a growth trajectory, right? When you're really planning stuff, and with all the commitments I have on my plate. So, it's a hard thing, but I think, again, if you can, look at your calendar, whatever works for you, right? For me, I'm a visual person. So when I can see what my day looks like, I can see what my week looks like, I can say, whoa, that's going to be too much. Because I know for me, if I've got, appointment, then I'm just going to be exhausted at the end of the day. And so you really got to fuel yourself mentally, you got to fuel yourself physically, and then you got to look out for your own time just to make sure that you're not reacting to everyone else's. Because I see it all the time, right? I just sat out there and listened to loan officers who were reacting to stuff. It was their proactive time to be making calls, and they're all of a sudden, calling on loan stuff versus working on their priorities. And so it's like everything else, you're going to have to make those choices. And I think that there's a saying I heard that you get what you tolerate, and I do my best. I'm not perfect at it to tolerate less that doesn't meet what's important to me and to my family and to those that are counting on me to be who I am, to do the things I do.
Yeah. I that's very well said. I tell people, you put your health stuff on the calendar first. If you go to a gym, if you take a walk, if you need to meal prep, your sleep, get your health stuff on the calendar first. Because if your health fails, you don't have what it's going to take to do really anything else. And then plug your relationship goals or your relationship tasks on the calendar second. So date with your spouse, or time with your children, or maybe once a month with your buddies, or every week with your friends. And then build your work around that. And that's worked really well for me. I need to make sure that I'm getting, my health stuff done and my relationship stuff done, because if your health or your relationships fall apart, it's pretty hard to do, anything else. But one thing before I forget, you mentioned Gary V, and I'm sorry I didn't put that in the introduction, because I actually heard you on Gary V's podcast and was pretty impressed. Anything you could say about that experience?
It was a little bit surreal, right? And it was I had the opportunity to have brunch with him. There was 10 other entrepreneurs in the room. And what I would say about that experience is, number one, is I blew it because I didn't pitch Win by Noon. I just said I had a sales and productivity product, so that was dumb. But what I would say is that he is exactly who he says he is. He came in right exactly when it was supposed to start. He sat down, he took interest in the room. He went around and asked everyone kind of what their story was. He challenged people. He definitely zeroed in on the younger folks, right? He's really concerned about the future generation and them really pursuing their passions. And what I felt was he was laser focused with everyone when he talked to him. He wasn't afraid to challenge you if he disagreed with you. And he was super present. At one point, his phone must have buzzed. He said, "I'm really sorry, guys. I gotta check that." And he didn't say who it was, but my guess is it must be his wife or someone, because that was really it. And then even at the end, he had his handler outside the room, and they were kind of giving him the 5 minutes, and he's like, "Yep." And then he ended up going a half an hour over, which must have been his kind of prep time, because literally finally they were like, "We got to go. You got to come now." And he literally walked straight from there over to the other corner office, which is where he films all of his Ask Gary Fee and stuff, super cool. And he just literally, by the time I got out the door from saying goodbye to the people that were my new friends, he was sitting down already recording some wine thing. He was already going. So he literally just went straight, but he was so involved in a couple of conversations at the end, he didn't want to leave. And it was just cool to see his whole group out there, D-Rock. And, it seems like a great organization. And I would certainly encourage anybody to continue to follow him if you want to figure out how to be relevant in the social space. I mean, he's been a huge influence on me there.
Yeah. Craig Sewing, I know Craig. He had the experience with Gary Vee as well. I mean, I'm fascinated by how he gets it all done as well. Hopefully someday I get him on this show.
There you go. I love
it. So, Todd, I really appreciate your time today and all your insight. How do people get a hold of you?
Probably the best way is just to email me, todd@winbynoon.com. And, I just love connecting with people, answering questions. So if there's something that I can do to be a benefit to you, let me know. And look forward to hopefully spending some time with you, Dan, and Katie. Of course, tell her I said hello. She's my favorite Win by Noon users. So she always does such a nice job.
She loves it. She loves it. I mean, I see her when I'm up in the morning when she gets back from the gym, she's on her Win by Noon planner. And I mean, every time I walk into her office, it's open there. And before she comes to bed, she's actually looking at her schedule as well. So
tell her I'm grateful, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here. And certainly all those of you who listen here to the end, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. I'm always honored to have the opportunity to spend time.
Absolutely. Todd, I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.